So let's get started here. On Sunday, in the evening, the original voice actor for Bayonetta, Hellena Taylor, tweeted out a series of videos on her Twitter, basically stating how she was, according to her, frozen out of being Bayonetta in the third game. Apparently, she did this because what she says she did this is because that Nintendo and Platinum lied about why she wasn't returning as Bayonetta. She claims that she was given in the video. She claimed that she was given only $4,000 flat rate to voice Bayonetta again for the third game. Okay, why don't we get started with the beginning of this and how it started? Zero, what were your thoughts when the video started popping up on social media about this?
It was kind of interesting because Bayonetta 3 comes out in now right about a weekish or so, or a week and a few days. So it's kind of like one of those things that is just like, wow, this is some really, really crappy timing for the game, because now the game's got controversy stirred up about it. Oh, geez. So initial thoughts when I saw the videos and everything, one thing that didn't sit right with me was, or two things actually. One was the pay number, because it was just like 4,000. Okay. The last I understood about how voice actors are paid, they're paid per session. They're not paid a giant lump sum to say, hey, we don't know how many hours we're going to need you or whatever, but our rate is just going to be $4,000 for your labor. Mm-hmm. That seemed a little off to me, because the little bit that I understand about the voice acting industry, you're paid per session. So I was just like, okay, well, 4,000. Okay, is that per session, or is that for the whole session? If it's for the whole session, okay, maybe this is like Platinum trying to lowball her to say, hey, buzz off, we'd rather go with someone else. And that was kind of where I was kind of struck by this. The other thing that didn't really sit well with me was just how she would say, she would make a bit of disparaging comments against Jennifer Hale, the new voice actress for Bayonetta, by basically saying something to the effect of she doesn't deserve the role. If there's any gaming conventions that happens, she should not even be signing any Bayonetta related merchandise or whatever as Bayonetta, because I'm Bayonetta, always have, always will be. And it just really didn't sit well with me, because I was just like, wait a second, this person that you're making disparaging remarks, they're in the same labor union as you. What is going on here? Mm-hmm. Something seems off. Why would you be this strung out to make disparaging remarks about a fellow industry colleague? That's not really good form in a professional sense, because you're potentially burning a bridge.
Right.
And those were just the two things on the onset that just didn't sit well with me when I initially saw this.
When I initially watched the video, the very first thing I thought was, oh, they lowballed you. they clearly lowballed you. And lowballing, I'm going to guess everyone knows what lowballing is, but I'll explain it anyway. Is basically when they give you a lesser amount in the hopes that you just don't take it and you leave. That is what I think the tactic was with Platinum. If this was the case of what was going on, and you're right too. Like, her attacking Jennifer Hale is also like very strange and was kind of unprofessional and unnecessary. The other thing that I think if I missed this, I'm sorry, but the timing specifically, not I get the timing of why she said this now. It was to do the maximum amount of hurt to this game. Like that's clear as day. It was to provide the max amount of hurt so it will hurt sales in the end. That was her goal throughout the entire time. My issue was initially too, why didn't she sound this off when before like the game was being made, or before like this was happening? That was my issue. Like if she would have sounded off and said, hey, Platinum Games is lowballing me in order to be Bayonetta, sound off so you can tell them that you want me to be paid fairly and to stay the voice of Bayonetta. That would have been what I thought would have been the go. It would still not be a smart thing to do, that being said, but I thought that if she cared about the job and was caring about the money, that would have been the tactic to go by. To then wait, what now, 6 years? To then wait until a week before the game comes out? It just screams pettiness, and it just screams like it just seems like she was just trying to provide maximum hurt. It wasn't, and she tried to sound altruistic by saying all these corporate people just take all the money and don't pay us fairly and stuff like that. She was trying to make it into a bigger cause. But if that was what she was really doing, the timing of it, I thought, was incredibly suspect. Although I understand why people would think, like, well, what other time would you want her to do it? And my answer would be when she had a chance to get the damn job. Because if she really cared about the damn job, she would have actually done it beforehand. But that was the thing that bugged me on this. On top of the fact that we only got one side of the story here. And with that being said, Zero, about an hour later, or less than an hour later, Hideki Kamiya, thank you. Hideki Kamiya tweeted and basically said that it was untrue. Like, what she's saying is false. And that the information will get out there soon. He then was, I guess, put on restricted notice on his Twitter account because he was blocking like crazy. But, anything with that. That was Sunday, correct? That was all Sunday?
Yeah, I believe Sunday evening into Monday.
Okay. And let's talk about the reactions from everybody in the gaming industry. Well, not in the gaming industry, but I would say the people who are into the gaming industry. Diehards and YouTubers that cover the game industry, I would say. The reaction was totally for Hellena Taylor. They all were like, yeah, you should be paid, you should be compensated fairly. You should be worth much more than just $4,000 and everything like that. And you know what? If that's the case, if she was offered that, I also tend to agree with that. If she was just offered that amount for the being Bayonetta throughout the entire time, just $4,000, yeah, that's a shitty pay. And I can understand why people were upset by that to a certain extent. The issue then becomes, then why did they then pay for Jennifer Hale to be Bayonetta, who is a much more expensive unionized actress? That was the one question that was swirling in my head. But everybody from popular YouTubers to reporters were all for Hellena Taylor, except for a couple that just remained silent throughout this. What are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, the Hideki Kamiya situation was kind of wild because, of course, just everyone makes being blocked by Kamiya sort of a weird, twisted game, but he does have some ground rules that he mentions on his Twitter account that he doesn't really like being tweeted at in English. So if you're trying to be sincere and engage a conversation with him, then just he's gonna really want to be able to try to engage conversation in his native language, Japanese, of course.
Right.
So it was kind of funny seeing a bunch of people on Twitter just getting getting a feeling like they were that they were wearing a badge of honor by being banned by Kamiya. But again, just Kamiya has his ground rules that he expects people that if they're truly trying to engage in sincere conversation with him, that they're going to speak to him Japanese. So that was kind of my thought on when he kind of went on the big banning spree. It was just kind of like, okay, well, you guys are just kind of trolling him because you all likely well know his rule, but you all don't care either. So
Yeah.
whatever.
Like even people that cover the, like even YouTubers that cover the industry or just interested in the industry have all said, yeah, this is kind of Kamiya's thing. Like if you speak English, he bans you. Essentially, is what
Yep.
it turns out to. So yeah.
So there was that, and then just kind of everyone sort of blindly jumping on the, well, voice actors are being massively underpaid. Well, we gotta believe Hellena Taylor. It was just kind of a, guys, can we slow down for a bit? Something doesn't smell right. I don't think we're being given everything. We only have one side of the story. Platinum is likely clamming the fuck up because that's probably what their lawyers in Japan have said. Just, you all need to shut the fuck up. Do not say a damn word. Do not even engage with this person. We'll find a way to sort out this whole mess to our reputation in another way and form. And with her mentioning, oh, well, Nintendo hasn't said a damn thing either, but they're part and privy to this whole thing. Same thing with Nintendo. Just Nintendo probably had their lawyers tell all the Nintendo staffers, do not comment on this. Do not say a damn thing about this. Do not even make something that sounds like an apology on this. If this goes to fucking court, the court's going to use every single little damn thing we say against us, and what any of you say could cost the company. So we need everyone to shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was just kind of funny just seeing a whole bunch of people going, and well, how dare Nintendo Platinum be despicable, not comment on the situation. It's just like, dude, I'm sorry, just, I hate to be cold, but this is just legal warfare 101. You shut the fuck up when your lawyer tells you to shut the fuck up.
Right. And it's also good PR to a certain extent too, because sometimes when it comes to getting your point across, there are two schools of thought. There is the best legal option and there's the best PR option. And oftentimes they are completely separate things. But in this case, you could, a PR person and a legal person probably would have agreed in both circumstances for Nintendo and for Platinum Games was to be quiet, let it pass, let it die down, let information get out there, just let it pass. Because the thought process I had around this time was basically, yeah, this is a big story, but not that big. This was going to die. If we hear nothing else, there was going to be a new controversy. There was going to be a new story that happens. And sure enough, on Sunday, that's exactly what happened. This was a big story for like a couple of hours. And then something bigger happened, which we will not discuss for reasons. But that's exactly what ended up happening in this aspect. So this, I think another detail that I forgot to talk about what the actor was saying in her video was she wanted everyone to boycott Bayonetta 3, to not buy it and take the money that you were going to buy to purchase the game and donate it to charity. Give me your thoughts on that aspect, if you can, Zero.
The charity angle seemed like an altruistic pivot. Like, hey, I'm not saying spend it on some other media. I'm not saying spend it on a thing that I was involved in. I'm not saying spend it on Patreon account if she even has one. I don't know, but it seemed like kind of like an altruistic pivot to just make it seem like the cause was altruistic, saying, hey, boycott the game, but also use your money on something else. So at least that was what I kind of took out of it. Because, yeah, just, again, with the numbers not making sense and then her kind of slamming a fellow colleague in the voice acting biz, it was just kind of like, yeah, this seems a little bit self-serving.
Yeah.
And then to add the whole boycott the game, but P.S. Don't if you absolutely have to burn money, just donate it to a charity. It just kind of seemed like her way of sort of skipping out on any sort of accusation that it could be a sort of self-serving that she's doing this.
Yeah. I mean, again, you're right. It was an altruistic pivot, but it wasn't like I wouldn't really want to say it's altruistic. I think it's more cunning than that, because it didn't seem like a genuine, like, because if you really wanted to do it with wanted to donate to a charity, like, then name the charity. Like, name the charity that you think deserves it and that you want to champion, then do that. If you're just saying, oh, just give the charity, to me, it was just like, you just want, it was just, the motive was to just make it hurt most to Platinum than to be altruistic, to me. It didn't, this smelled like more self-servingness than altruism to me. That's where, that was like another thing that kind of turned me off to this, because my feeling of it was, if what she said was 100% true, and I had no reason to believe it wasn't, the story would have gone out the same way, no problem, and it would have gotten the same buzz. And if she would have asked nothing for it, she probably would have gotten a lot more support, I would say, on that one. Instead of some people like us questioning, why are you doing that? Like, what are you doing? Like, that's, like, when she tried to gain an advantage or tried to process an outcome to a certain extent to hurt others, is when I failed to believe that it was altruistic in any sort of way. So that was my feeling on that. So let's get into Monday at this point. So YouTubers, people who cover the industry, sounded off their hot takes. They basically agreed with they championed Hellena. They poo-pooed Platinum and Nintendo, calling them greedy. People started posting pictures of them canceling their pre-orders and stuff like that. A lot of YouTubers did it. A lot of popular Twitter accounts did it. Few people were questioning it, honestly. Except some rumblings started going around. You saw something on Reddit. Why don't you go ahead and tell me what you found on Reddit that you showed me around that time on Monday?
So, just there were some rumblings that, this kind of goes hand in hand with one of the trends that we had noticed, which was you didn't see a lot of voice actors willing to put their neck out on the line and stand in solidarity with Hellena Taylor. Right. But also you didn't see many game studio directors or producers just kind of popping up on social media going, yo, hey, if you're looking for a job, contact us at, our little line here or whatnot. So
right.
It was one of those things that we both found a little weird. And then just, there were some threads discussing about this whole thing. And I ended up finding Reddit talking a lot about a comment that was left by a William Salyers. And for anyone who's not familiar with him, he played Morden Solus in Mass Effect 3, and he's had some other roles in the video game industry too. But his take on it, which was posted as a Kotaku comment, was basically that, just this seems like the usual union rate, and just $4,000 seems like a pretty good offer, because just typically you're in studio for just a couple hours a day, so just being if the game's recording session is over one day, then $4,000 for the day, that's not bad. $4,000 over a couple days isn't bad compared to most blue collar folks either. But ultimately he had said, just roles can be recast. that the actors do not own the roles. The roles are are under the ownership of the game development company.
Right.
And because the roles can be recast, there's always a chance that, you know, just a role could be taken from you because a director wants to move a different way, or maybe the rate you're asking for is too much, and that's what it is. But also, he just finds it kind of weird, just that, you know, the argument that Platinum was trying to be cheap didn't really mesh well because of the fact that they hired Jennifer Hale,
Yes,
one of the industry's biggest names. You're not gonna get a name like Jennifer Hale for cheap. So that was another problem that William Salyers in his Kotaku comment mentioned as well too. So he had said, you know, just, I get it, you know, voice acting is a tough gig. Voice actors do deserve a living wage, but the reality is the industry is pretty tough, and you're pretty much trying to gamble your way into a living wage, and you kind of have to diversify yourself and, you know, start taking multiple roles, and hopefully all the roles work out. And if they do work out, then great, cool. You've managed to resolve your income situation that you can have a living wage to live off of. That was where a lot of the discussion started to brew about things. And then the rabbit hole got a little bit deeper because some people were saying that Bayonetta 1 and 2 had recording sessions of about 4 hours a day over 4 days. So a grand total of 16 hours of voice work required for the game. Of course, just I got curious about this, tried to read further into some of the comments about Bayonetta 1 and 2 requiring just about 16 hours of voice work, because I was curious on where this number was coming from. As the internet so often does, someone provided the sauce, and the sauce was a Nintendo Players UK podcast from back in February 2018. So right around the time that Bayonetta 2 had came out on Switch for the re-release. And in there, Hellena Taylor mentions that she was in studio for about 4 hours a day for 4 days.
Yeah.
So this is where, in my opinion, things started to really start to fall apart.
Right. And for those of you who are still saying, like, well, 4,000 for that, for that one thing, that's so little. Let me put this in perspective for you. Zero just said it was 16 hours total for 4 days of 4 hour sessions. That's $250 an hour, essentially, that she was being paid. Okay? And in that aspect, that's not a pittance right there. That is actually very good, considering people who do jobs for like $20 an hour. Like, when you put in perspective that she's only working 16 hours and she's getting 4,000, I mean, that's kind of rich. And that's not rich as in like, ooh, look at the money, but it's still an attractive offer. You're doing not that much work for a lot of money at that point. And the other thing also, I listened to her on that podcast, and she didn't seem disturbed by it. She didn't seem bothered by it. She was very matter of fact. Oh, yeah, I got paid this for this amount of time. Yeah, well, that's how it is. And we did it quick, too. We're quick. We just got it done. It didn't take much time at all. Like, which was really interesting to hear her say that when she was saying in the video how she would toil and work hard and sacrifice and do all this stuff to prepare for this role. And here is her on this podcast going, yeah, it's no big deal. So that started falling apart. And then, as you mentioned as well with the other voice actors, bit by bit saying, this actually is not bad, or something's off here. Hold up. There's another voice actor who says, don't attack Jennifer Hale. I mean, of anything, that was another thing that was going on, that people were attacking Jennifer Hale for this, which was dumb. A lot of people were, a lot of voice actors who came out of the woodwork to talk were defending Jennifer Hale and saying, this is not that bad of a rate. So those bubbles started bursting at that point. And then other things started popping up too. A lot of people started mentioning that if you look at her IMDb, and when it comes to voice acting, the only thing she ever did was Bayonetta, except for like one voice in Dragon Age. She only does Bayonetta. In fact, the last time she did any voice acting work was 2014 for Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U. And she was Bayonetta then. Okay? After that, no other work happened. She did nothing else. Okay? Now, Zero. Would you say that Hellena Taylor is a talented voice actress?
As far as my experience with her, it's mostly been through Bayonetta,
Yeah.
and she plays the Bayonetta role well enough. So, I mean, just unfortunately, since I don't have much experience with her other work, I've got no idea what her range is. And then by comparison, Jennifer Hale, I'm a little bit familiar with her, mostly because just I'm kind of a video game industry nerd, for one, but two, just when you look at just the list of things that Miss Hale has done, it's huge. She's got a ginormous range, and it's just one of those things. It's just like, yeah, just again, the number argument just started to fall apart immediately, because it was just like, if Platinum's trying to be cheap, why would they hire one of the most renowned female voice actresses of the industry? It just doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. 100%. I agree with you there. I just wanted to mention if you thought she was talented, because I think if you were to do a voice like Bayonetta, like the way she did it, I would say she's pretty talented. I mean, if you listen to her on the video, and then you listen to her as Bayonetta, you can tell there's talent there, and she can do voices fairly well. And with how much she talked about how she studied and stuff like that, you know, I mean, I think it's fair to say she's fairly talented. My question was, if she's talented, if she is that talented, which I think she is, why wasn't she getting other work? Why was she only being Bayonetta? Like, why was she only voicing that character at that point? Because most other voice actors, knowing how much they get paid, do different roles. They say, oh, I'll do this role, great. Oh, and I'll be doing this role in 2 months, and then this role in 2 months, and this role in 2 months. And they just keep working on that. But even like mid-tier or not very popular voice actors do this. They'll either do a video game here, and then they'll do an anime for about a season here. Why did she rely on this one character for the role? Like, that's the one thing I was like, wait a minute, what? It's like, what are you doing? Like, that's to me, that was silly. Like, I looked at that, was like, the only thing you ever did was Bayonetta, huh? Huh. Which doesn't look good on her resume, and on top of that, does not work well when negotiating a salary. Because if you're negotiating a salary, you need to let them know that you can leave for better pastures at any time. And if you are sticking to this job like your life depends on it, that means you have no leverage. So that was a critical error on her part too, if that was the case. So that was set. That was Monday, correct? That was Monday. All that happened.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get to today. Okay. You know what? You want to get into today's news and what happened?
Yeah. So, one of our favorite video game reporters, Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, had one hell of an explosive piece of news today. So, on reaching out to some of his sources, he had two sources that were not platinum, but were, as he quoted, closely related to the negotiation talks, who were willing to speak to him on the condition of having their identity protected, and also were able to provide him documents of the negotiation terms. Mm-hmm. And what makes this interesting is, in usual Jason Schreier fashion, he goes out of his way, like a traditional journalist, to verify the source.
Right.
So he spoke with some other folks in the industry, and they were like, "Yeah, the docs you have are legit." So, so there was that. But what made it much more explosive is just the fact that Miss Taylor really wasn't quite as honest as she was about the pay rate.
Right.
Because the pay rate that was being discussed with her returning for recording Bayonetta for the third game was that Platinum was originally looking to hire her for 5 sessions. So, and keep in mind, people, it's 4 hours per session.
Okay.
So 5 days, 4 sessions apiece, and they were willing to pay her the going rate of somewhere to the tune of $3,000 to $4,000 per session. So we're talking a grand total of anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000. So,
sorry.
Yeah, kind of a big discrepancy versus just, hey, they were just going to pay me $4K.
It's good to note that when she mentioned in the video, she said 4,000 flat rate. Now she can turn that around and say, "Well, yeah, flat rate per session. That's what I meant." But she knew what she was doing here because she could have at any time say that no, it was 4,000 per session. But you know that if she then said that, it's 4,000 per session, people would have looked at it and was, wait, $20,000. That sounds fantastic. What are you complaining about? Like what's your deal? So
yeah, that, or wow, $1,000 an hour. Man, I wish I could make $1,000 an hour.
Exactly. So yeah, and when this started pulling the rounds, all of a sudden those people who are white knighting Hellena Taylor that did not question the narrative and did not question her intentions were suddenly shocked. I'm like, oh my God, has she lied? I'm like, yeah, of course she lied. Like,
well, no to use the famous as seen on TV line from Billy Mays, but wait, there's more.
Yep.
So apparently she didn't like the offer that Platinum threw down of essentially $15,000 to $20,000 for 5 days of work. So her counter offer was a 6-figure sum that unfortunately was not listed. I assume because that would potentially out whoever revealed the documents to Jason Schreier. But also she wanted residuals for the game sales as well too, which let's all be clear. With how much games do sell, the residuals are a fair ask. But to basically kind of get too big for our own britches and say, yo, I want a 6-figure number, and I want a residuals deal too.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally, just with that kind of money, Platinum declined. They were just like, yeah, we're not gonna do that. And I presume when just the negotiations with Hellena Taylor stalemated, that was when they probably had just said, you know what, screw this. Let's start holding auditions and see if we can recast the role to someone else, someone who will not be asking for a 6-figure deal. And naturally, that's where Jennifer Hale comes into the picture.
Yep.
I presume she probably had said, hey, yeah, you guys probably know me because I've done a whole bunch of roles, but this is what my union's going to be asking for my rate because I'm a little bit more famous than most voice actors. So this is the price, take it or leave it. And Platinum saw that it was a hell of a lot of savings versus paying 6 figures and a residuals contract deal. And they were just like, all right, Miss Hale, you are now the voice of Bayonetta, and called it a day.
And that's all fair. Like, that's fair. Because if you can negotiate however you want, but negotiation takes a lot of
compromise.
not only just compromise, but you have to be very smart about how you negotiate. Because if you negotiate too low, the person's like, absolutely, I'll take it. And then, now what? But if you go too high, you can either get someone who says, yeah, let's temper that down, or they'll say, oh, all right, well, fuck you then. We'll find someone else. If you're being that unreasonable. You have to have a deft hand when doing negotiations. And if that's true what happened, and the sources say that's exactly what happened here, I mean, she fucked up, essentially. She overplayed her hand. And I'll get back to what I was saying before. If the only job you have is Bayonetta, how can you prove to them that you're more valuable than they think you are? Okay? Because the best way to show that you're more valuable than they are paying you is saying, hey, these people are paying me X. Why aren't you paying me that? And I'm the character of this person that you're creating. I should be paid more than that. Then you'd have something. But because she was only Bayonetta, okay, she kind of screwed herself. I mean, here's an example, Zero. Charles Martinet, okay? The voice of Mario. He does other voice acting on top of Mario. Okay? Even he does it. Even though he has a very cushy job that he's had since what? 1997? 1998? I mean, he's had
I think so.
Yeah, he's had that job the entire time. But he does other voice acting work. He actually does other acting too. Like, he's not dumb. He's doing more work. And I will bet you, if we ever find out, which we never will, of course, that as time went on, he started doing more work. He could go to Nintendo and goes, hey, I could love to be Mario again, but, I get paid doing this character this much. Why can't you match that? And they'll go, you're right. We can match that. Good deal. There we go. I mean, she made critical mistakes in the negotiation process here as well. So this is not just like, oh, these corporate people are evil and are trying to lowball her. It at this point, it's basically she priced herself out to a certain. Do you feel the same way that she essentially priced herself out of this?
Yeah, it's one part that, but also she completely misunderstood the Western culture's importance on voice acting. It's not like the Japanese market where a name will be sort of almost like a brand of its own, that, just a Japanese voice actress, some people will follow them through their work because they're just like, love her, she rocks, or love him, he plays this villain like so well, and everything, that, just that may have been just how she priced herself out. She was just like, this is a Japanese company. They probably value Japanese voice actors, so, maybe I can hardball them and get a better deal. And as a result of overplaying her hand, the role went to Jennifer Hale because, again, just Hale was cheaper.
Yeah.
And just it's unfortunate that this happened, but again, it's like you said, just you gotta know when to fold them, and just if you try to overplay, someone will call you out on it, and when they call you out on it, if you don't got what it takes, then they're just gonna pass up and say, "Yep, sorry, we don't think you're worth that much. Goodbye."
Yeah, she's like a poker player who thinks that a three of a kind is enough, and the opponent has a royal flush. Like, this is essentially what she did here. Like, she thought she had the perfect hand and that she could win, and then someone surprises her with a better hand. And that's just the game. That's just how it is when negotiating salary. Like, and that's happened to me too in my life, where I tried to negotiate a higher salary and essentially got shut down because, like, yeah, you're overstating your importance, or from what I was told, yeah, I don't even make that amount of money. So that's essentially what happened here. Let's talk about a few things surrounding this controversy that happened. I had a big issue with how this was being covered by a lot of the YouTubers or a lot of the people who cover the business, and it was really overstating the importance of Bayonetta. Okay, and overstating the amount of sales that Bayonetta makes, which is something specifically Hellena Taylor did. Okay, the first thing that I balked at was when Hellena Taylor said that this series makes $450 million in sales and merchandise. Okay, we did the math last night, and it ain't nowhere near that. It is nowhere. It's not even. It's a little more than half. Like, if you took the amount of sales that Bayonetta did total throughout the entire series, and then you times it by 60, the units, like to buy $60, you get $250 million. Okay? And there ain't no way that Bayonetta is making $200 million in merchandise. There's no way I believe that whatsoever. What was your thought on that?
The overstating of the importance of the Bayonetta franchise, I thought was really odd to see, because you can look up the numbers. It's not Call of Duty numbers, clearly, and that was why I was just kind of like, I don't get where people are getting this thought that, you know, just Bayonetta is like one of the most important games. It's just like, I'll come out and disclose this to be completely transparent about this, but I'm a big Bayonetta fan because I like character action games like Devil May Cry, and Bayonetta's right in that wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So I enjoy the game, but unfortunately, it's not in the zeitgeist of most people. Most people aren't gonna trip over themselves to go buy the Bayonetta games. Most people aren't really gonna trip over themselves to buy Devil May Cry. Those are games that, as much as it hurts me to say this, they're a relic of a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Devil May Cry 5 that did some new updates. It's got shiny graphics and all that other stuff, but when it gets to brass tacks, Devil May Cry at its foundation is still a very old-fashioned game.
Thing that really started getting on my nerves when listening to all these YouTubers and these people covering it is that they would overstate the absolute importance of Bayonetta in the industry. I can't tell you how many times I heard the word iconic when it came to Bayonetta. Bayonetta
iconic's a stretch.
God.
It's a cult. I would put it in cult classic status.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. You know what I would call iconic? Call of Duty's iconic. Madden's iconic. Maybe Destiny. Yeah, okay. Destiny. Nah. Mario.
Destiny's a bit iconic, mostly because just they went all out with like the voice talent and everything.
Okay,
and
sure.
That was one of the big marketing points that they made for Destiny 2. They're just like, oh yeah, we've got Nathan Fillion, and we've got some other folks who are all big names. We've got John DiMaggio playing a character in here too.
Yeah, Halo is iconic. Mario, Zelda, those are iconic. Those are wildly popular. Bayonetta is not. Bayonetta is not. And like you, I'm a fan of Bayonetta, and I like these games. But there ain't no damn way you're going to convince me that it's iconic. It's not. It really isn't. They're fun games, and the people who like them, but it's a small fraction of people who like them. And if it was as iconic as people have been saying it is, Platinum wouldn't have needed Nintendo's help and money in order to produce Bayonetta 2. It couldn't have been that iconic if or wildly popular if Platinum needed to do that. If they needed to marry themselves with Nintendo in order to release these games. The overstating of how important Bayonetta is, not only as a game, but as a character, another thing that annoyed the hell out of me. I just could not believe I was hearing. Because in the same breath, these people would say, oh, the iconic character Bayonetta, and then say 5 seconds later, that doesn't sell very well. Guys! Really now? Are you not hearing yourselves? What is this? Jesus Christ.
And then just, especially with kind of overstating the importance that Hellena Taylor is the voice of Bayonetta, it's just like, not gonna say that she's not the voice of Bayonetta. I mean, and she was lovely in 1 and 2, but unfortunately, just much like you had stated earlier in the conversation, just her repertoire isn't all there. I mean, and the importance of Bayonetta as a character just it doesn't really hold up to scrutiny and everything.
Yeah.
Because just at the same right, like I was mentioning with a kind of Japanese culture, with kind of having a reverence for voice actors, that people will follow voice actors kind of everywhere and everything, depending on the mediums that they're working on and everything. One of my favorite voice actors from the Japanese space, Norio Wakamoto. He's played so many great villain voices in many animes, like Rao in Fist of the North Star. He played Cell in Dragon Ball Z, and the role that I was introduced to him being was the Japanese version of Dracula in Symphony of the Night. Just he's one voice actor that many people will follow, just on whatever game he's on or whatever anime he's on. And just to think that people were that she got the thought that people were following her on the roles, and then you've got these YouTube news pundits who are saying, "Oh yeah, just the iconic role of Bayonetta." It's just like, guys, the West doesn't have a voice actor fandom culture like Japan. There's no leverage in Western society for that kind of thing. It's just like, maybe if this was Japan, sure, maybe, but just the West doesn't have that kind of a culture.
Right. And let's also, like, if you look at some Japanese game trailers, even in the West, when they do the character trailers, they always have the name of the voice actors who are playing those characters. It's something I have always noticed, like in the past, like 5 or 10 years, when like games like Trails of Cold Steel or something along those lines, when they do those trailers, they always have the Japanese voice actors on there. And I guess the reason why is because they want to get popularity and people excited for those games. The other thing that I noticed almost right away when this was starting to going on was, why didn't anyone notice that the voice actors changed when the trailer came out recently and the Nintendo Direct? I heard no one saying, Bayonetta sounds different. Or saying, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like Bayonetta. I heard no one saying that. All I kept hearing from Bayonetta 3 was, alright, can't wait to play it. Looks cool. That's all I kept hearing. And it wasn't until somebody thought to ask, like, wait a minute, Hellena Taylor is the actress. It's Jennifer Hale this time. Why is that? And then the ball started rolling. Like, literally no one knew. And no one thought to care at this. And for then all of a sudden for people to be like, oh my God, the injustice. You didn't recognize that it changed. Like, no one did. No one cared. Everyone was just like, oh, okay. Cool, I guess. Sure. It couldn't have been that iconic if no one was pissed until she said something. Am I wrong on that?
No, I mean, just that was another thing that was interesting as well too, and kind of like you, when this whole controversy was kind of being stirred up, I was just like, wait a second. When Nintendo put out some trailers where they actually had Bayonetta speaking, nobody had an issue.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, now everyone's got an issue? Okay, what in the hell's going on?
Yeah. And because... And the whole thing... Everything's changed in the past 3 days. It went from everyone supporting Hellena Taylor to now everyone is kind of pissed at her now about this. She's doubling down saying what her account of everything is true, even though reporters are basically confirming it's not. And she said that she'll just work in the theater and forget all about this. Which, honestly, if that was the case, is something you should have done in the first place. Because if you didn't care about doing this anymore, there was no fucking reason for you to do this. So, except for to gain revenge. And if that was your modus operandi to do, then I guess you got it. But now, what I think is going to happen, Zero, before all this happened, we talked about this privately. I thought Bayonetta 3 was probably going to get the least amount of sales out of the 3. Now I think it's going to beat the first 2. I think it will get 1.5 million sales when everything's said and done. What do you think?
Yeah. Especially from the fact that this is Streisand Effect 101.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that this story got so big and so blown up that you have TMZ, of all places, reporting this. And TMZ barely touches video games. Barely.
Yep.
To have this in kind of like the mainstream zeitgeist now, just now you're going to have people curious going, yo, what's this Bayonetta 3 about?
Yeah, and they're going to be like, oh my god, you fight monsters and you strip while doing it? I'm buying that shit. Ooh-wee!
Yep. So it's just classic Streisand Effect. If you didn't want to bring attention to Bayonetta 3, you probably were better off just kind of leaving things alone. But of course, just well and off alone is just not enough. So now she's decided, hey, well, let's just go kick the hornet's nest instead.
I think, like I said, I think this will now increase sales. It will basically it'll make Bayonetta a more high-profile game now, and for this one only. I don't think this is going to last for Bayonetta 3 at this point. And in Hellena Taylor's case, I'd pray that it does go that way, because if this damaged sales, and it's been proven that she was 100% false on this, she could be in some serious trouble. Like, she could be in some legal trouble here. So, if I were her, I'd be praying this makes sales now. I would be praying it does. So, Nintendo and Platinum, instead of sending lawyers, will send her thank you cards and saying, "Hey, thanks for the free press. Thanks for the free marketing."
Just to kind of remind people where we stand on things.
Okay.
Wiz and I, we do feel that, stuff like SAG-AFTRA is important for video game voice actors. So this is not us poo-pooing on just voice acting talent in general. Just, there is a place for it, but if the concern is about wages, just you have to kind of go back to SAG-AFTRA and go, yo, if the going rate at minimum is $1,000 per session with no residuals, then you need to start holding that union accountable and say, hey, shouldn't we start reevaluating these sorts of agreements, especially if these potential franchises may have toys and other licensed merch that may bear the likeness of the character that we play. That should be a question everyone's asking, but of course, everyone doesn't want to use the big brain tactic and think on that. They're just like, well, this is on Platinum and Nintendo. Not really. It's a two-way street. Yeah, they own the brands or do the publishing in Nintendo's case with Bayonetta, but again, just you have to go back and ask the union why the minimum rate is the rate that it is. Because I know some of the other chatter from some other voice actors were like, oh yeah, just $4,000 for like a 4-day session agreement. Yeah, kind of normal to me, which goes right in line with the SAG-AFTRA $1,000 per session sort of thing. Yeah. So again, just if you're concerned about the pay, you should be asking the bigger question on SAG-AFTRA: why is the minimum where it is? Because if that's not enough for a voice actor to live off of, then again, you need to start asking why the minimum is where it is, and maybe start holding SAG-AFTRA accountable and say, maybe you should start looking to increase the pay rate at minimum for video game voice actors, because $1,000 per session might be too low. Right. So
it was interesting. We mentioned who was silent in this, which was game developers, game heads, studios, and other voice actors throughout this entire thing. We're relatively silent until a few of them stepped up and said, something's up here. But I think the one that was most telling that we didn't catch on till later was the fact that SAG-AFTRA said zip throughout this entire thing. Didn't say a thing of support. Didn't say anything in this. They didn't denigrate. They didn't praise. They just were silent. And you'd think a union that wants as many people in their fold as possible, would want to stand up and say, this is why we need unions, and this is why we have unions, to prevent something like this. But they were completely silent. Like, like that should have been another sign for everyone to have been like, yeah, we're not getting the whole story here. Like, something's up here. I want to also just state on this point, you're right. I agree that these people do deserve more money to do their job. However, I will also point out that SAG-AFTRA, as a union, they make more money off of Hollywood and TV than they'll ever do with video game voice acting. So if they're going to put a lot of effort in to make their union work, it's going to be with those actors. Because they get, I can imagine, they get a lot of good dues and a lot of good fees from Hollywood actors, actors in movies, actors in TV shows, and stuff like that, more than they ever do with voice acting. And the other problem is, I hate to say this, but in voice acting in games, it's a luxury. It's not necessary. You can make a good game without voice acting. Hell, one of the biggest selling games of all time, which is Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, has 0 voice acting. There's none. It's all text boxes. That right there will tell you that it's a luxury. Yes, I get that games like Last of Us and Uncharted would not work as well without voice acting and motion capture. And I get that. They deserve to be paid well. But until they are a necessary component in video games, like just as necessary as the programmers and the artists and the technical people that run these games, they're not going to get it anytime soon. And I don't think they will. Because they're always going to be an afterthought. Because if they become too expensive, I can see companies saying, okay, let's just go back to text boxes. Or let's just do Japanese voice acting.
Yep. And to the last point, too, there have been games that just have been completely localized with just only Japanese voice acting because the cost was just too prohibitive. Mm-hmm. A great example of this was Blaze Blue Central Fiction. When it had come out, Arc System Works, who had taken over the publishing and licensing duties off of Axis Games, they actually had made a giant PR statement before the release of Central Fiction to switch PC and PS4, saying, hey, due to cost, we are not including English voice acting in this game. This game will just have Japanese voices only. We're sorry, but just them's the breaks.
Yeah. And honestly, everyone was fine with it. Like, everyone was fine with it. Like, and that's the other thing, too. Yeah, gamers do like voice acting, but if it's in Japanese and in subtitles, they're fine with it. They're completely fine with it. Yes, some will complain this should have voice acting. That sucks. It should have voice acting, but they'll play it anyway. I mean, another example I would give is Yakuza, or the Like a Dragon series. The first Yakuza was very expensive to develop for the States, and it didn't do its sales very well. But because then Sega decided, okay, we'll just do Japanese voice acting and subtitles, it gradually became more and more popular and started making money. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation on that, too. So, yeah, unfortunately, the story, if it was 100% honest, okay, well, if she was 100% honest, this would have gotten nowhere. But if it was true that she was definitely being lowballed, it would have been a great conversation piece about getting these people better wages. But now that she lied, and that it's now being shown that she was very manipulative, and that she fucked up, I mean, that conversation is going to go away. and they're gonna go back to square one. And the people that she was supposedly helping, which she really wasn't, she was doing it for her own benefit, is gonna get hurt by the most. And because she's not working anyway, it doesn't matter to her. So the people who are gonna get hurt by this the most now, unless Hellena Taylor gets sued, are the voice actors in this, because now that conversation has now totally been snuffed out.
Yeah, and to the last point, just with smaller voice actors being hurt, it's gonna suck for them, because one of the voice actors who did some non-contract work for Red Dead Redemption and I think GTA 5 had said that his rate was like the SAG-AFTRA usual $1,000 per session, and he got a grand total of like $4,000 from the gig. Yeah, you've got smaller voice actors like him who are likely going to be kind of stifled in the low tier zone, because just, hey, he only did small parts, so he gets small part pay, whereas the titans on top of the voice acting industry, your Troy Bakers, your Nolan Norths, your Jennifer Hales, and so on, they're unfortunately probably going to get the lion's share of the work, and also the lion's share of the pay.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, just this thing has likely damaged the momentum for voice actors in the maybe in the short term, maybe in the long term. I don't know. I'm not 100% on the up and up on how the voice acting industry works. So I can't definitively say. If anyone wants to shoot us an email and talk to us about the voice acting industry as far as video games are concerned, we'd love to hear it from you.
Yeah.
So
zerowizcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, but honestly, that's really the final closing comment I've got to say on this whole saga. Just unfortunately, there's going to be long-term damage done to the industry with regards to the actors, especially the ones who are trying to seek better pay in the industry as a whole. Just this conversation, the dishonesty potentially behind it, just it's done a lot of damage to potentially try to help further the industry, and it's a bit unfortunate.
Right. And yeah, and when this happens again, because it's going to happen again, I think, now that person is going to have to bring all the receipts in order to prove this. All of them. And if they don't do it right away, no one's going to buy it. So now she's put someone who may actually need the help in a situation where they're going to have to think about whether they're going to want to get into legal trouble in order to do this. So you've pretty much now just stifled others to do what she just did. It's going to do more damage than good. And if I were peers of Hellena Taylor, I'd be fairly upset with her right now. But then again, she doesn't work anymore, so you don't really have to deal with her anymore. Thank you for listening to this podcast segment. The Capital Games podcast is done every week, and we post it on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as segments on YouTube. If you want to listen to another segment, you can listen to a new one right there on the screen. We also do a movie podcast called the Capital Games Movie Club. If you'd like, you can go ahead and click on that and see all the movies that we have reviewed from that point. Thank you for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon.